Many Palestinians living in the West Bank are facing a serious shortage of water. While the local aquifers could feasibly supply the region with enough water, Palestinian mismanagement and Israel's presence in the area have prevented the proper infrastructure from being constructed. As a result, according to a 2009 report by the World Bank, about 10% of the 2 million people living in the West Bank are forced to buy water trucked in by Israel's national water company, leaving many in the West Bank at the mercy of the Israeli government. Gabriele Barbati covered the story for the International Business Times and joined us from Jerusalem to talk about what he's found. All right, so in your article, you're talking about the challenges that Palestinians are having trying to go about their daily lives. What have you witnessed while you have been there?
Well, I visited two villages in the southern West Bank. One is Giwan al-Fawqa, the other one is Al-Susia, but the same situation applies to many other villages down there. So basically there are no water pipes, neither Palestinians nor Israeli reaching several places in the southern West Bank, especially if we talk about the area C of the West Bank, so almost 60% of the West Bank. Just to be clear, the area C of the West Bank is the area under full Israeli military control according to the Oslo Agreement. So these places are not served by any pipelines, and so what they have to do is to rely either on the water, the rainwater collected in cisterns they have in order to feed the animals and to feed themselves in some cases. The other option they have is to buy water. So this water has to be bought and trucked from a filling point to these villages. The farther the village is from the filling point, the higher is the cost to do that. And in some cases, the cost is it's a very high percentage of the income of these people.
Now, with this crisis of trying to find clean water and sanitation, does it seem as though people knew that this was going to happen? Did they expect this?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that everybody here in Ramallah, in the West Bank in general, this situation was pretty clear since the early 90s, since the Oslo Agreement, where basically the Israeli authorities and the Palestinian authorities signed this agreement about how to share water. And apparently the situation was clear then, and it has been clear since then. So basically, there is water in the West Bank. There is a big misunderstanding about the fact that there is no water here. There is water, but this water is almost fully controlled by Israel. So Israel used the water for their purposes or for the purposes of the settlements inside the West Bank, and Palestinians are struggling to get their share of the water, in part because in the agreement, the quantity they agreed for was maybe lower than what they should have signed for. On the other hand, because there are many problems like mismanagement by the Palestinian authorities for drilling this water and carrying this water to the villages. On the other hand, because there are a very complicated permit system in order to drill water and to carry water through pipelines to these villages. To have a pipeline, you have to ask for a permit. If this permit doesn't come from the Israeli civilian authority, you cannot get a pipe and you cannot get water in these villages. Result is there is no water.
So are Palestinians basically even more dependent now on Israel's water supply?
I'll just give you a figure. Basically, for an array of reasons, so not just one reason, but many reasons, Palestinians in the West Bank have to buy 56% of their water, of the water they use every day, from Mekorot, that is the national Israeli carrier. So they have to buy this extra water because they don't have their own resources they can use in their everyday life. Big dependency.
Is there anything you'd like to add that you weren't able to talk about in your article?
Well, of course, water is just one of the issues of a wider conflict between these two sides. So, for example, it's true that in water there are many specific problems related to water, But of course, Palestinians have other limitations they are suffering from, like the general restraints and limitations that they are subjected to in the West Bank. So the point is that whatever they could do and whatever they would like to do to improve their situations is somehow limited by the fact that they are under, they say occupation, we could call it control, by Israel. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to say who's right or who's wrong, because there is wrong and right on both sides. The result is that water, more than the status of Jerusalem, more than the land, more than the right of return of the refugees, it's one of the few problems which could be solved right now and could be very relevant to the well-being of people.